Welcome to yet another episode of Mixed Feelings. I appreciate you guys from the bottom of my heart, the amount of support. You guys have shown my show and page. It means a lot. We just reached, I think it was 550 subscribers on Facebook, and we just opened up a YouTube page. So I think I'm at about maybe 50, somewhere around 50 subscribers on YouTube. So if you can, please go share, like, subscribe, everything on Facebook, everything on YouTube, because we're trying to grow this thing. Uh, welcome to Mixed Feelings, everyone. I'm sitting here with two very good friends of mine, and mean a lot to me in the world, and it means a lot to me to come sit down, have a conversation with me today. Spent their day, their Sunday, with me instead of with their families, other friends. We all got lives to do, and I appreciate you guys. Welcome to Mixed Feelings, where raw conversation meet real world insights. Whether you're tuning in for thought provoking discussions, untold stories, or a fresh perspective, we're all about breaking the surface and diving deep. No fluff, no scripts, just honest, unfiltered dialogue on the things that matter most. You are about to receive Mixed Feelings. Welcome, my brothers. How y'all doing today?
Doing good.
Good.
I'm here with one of my close friends, Daniel, and another good friend of mine, close friend Q. We've been on trips together. We grew up together. I've been knowing you guys for a very, very long time. And this show in particular, most of my friends that I try to keep around me, I try to keep good people around me. And if I feel like you're a good person, I want you around me. I want that good vibe, that good energy, people who take care of their responsibilities, and just all around great people. And I feel like two of you guys set great examples for what this topic is today, that we're going to discuss, being a father. A lot of you know a lot of fathers are looked down upon for not taking care of responsibilities, not doing the right thing. So tell me a little bit about you guys self, as far as how I should consider your opinion on being a father. Tell me your how many kids you have, how long you've been a father, of course, and what it means being a father to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a 7-year-old daughter.
Mhm.
Being a father, you really don't realize how much it will change your life and your perspective on everything until you actually, go through that.
Yeah.
So it's just one thing that I always want to be with my daughter, is the best I can be and lead by example.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I have a stepson as well, and he is
Mhm.
now 9. So the essentially it's new in a space of being a step parent, right?
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
and also still being a parent to my daughter as well. So
Mhm.
I try not to put labels to it to make it different in
Yeah,
any translation of parenting, but yeah, that's kind of my backstory within that of parenting, and it's showing up and being really the best dad that I can be,
Yeah.
and best stepdad, and just trying to lead, like Daniel said, lead by example,
Yeah.
and hopes that instilling great lessons for them in the future, to where they can take that choice for themselves, and hopefully just a great experience for them throughout life.
So, we all share something in common. We're either a step parent or have step parents for our children.
Mhm.
That aspect is tough.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really tough
Yeah.
to not being the primary parent, to not being to having another parent be the parent. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
children traveling to different houses each time.
Yeah,
It is a
absolutely.
tough. I mean, it's a battle within a battle within a
Yeah.
battle.
Yeah.
One thing I do, my daughter, she loves my wife. but like I said, it's a battle.
Mhm.
I'm week on, week off. So I have her this week. I won't see her for next week
Mhm.
until the following week. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So things of just life itself can be tricky about, just extracurricular activities,
Mhm.
for example. I wanted to go to this school, but
Mhm.
she can't get her to that school.
Yeah.
So now I have to settle for this school.
Mhm.
And it's, at some point, and I've said this on the show before, I personally feel that I failed my daughter
Mm.
simply because that she won't share the same life as my son.
Mhm.
So not that she won't have a great life,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But she's not, even when you have kids with your new wife, right?
Yeah.
They're not gonna share the same
Mhm.
life. There's gonna be times where you're gonna do things with your new child, right?
Mhm.
That you can't
Yeah.
do with your other child, right?
Mhm.
Or you can, but it's just I don't have her today, so the
Yeah.
birthday party's today. Now my ex is being a bitch, and
Mhm.
now it's just not gonna work out. Now I'm just gonna take this child.
100%.
Yeah.
So me and my wife were actually on this conversation the other day.
Mhm.
No matter how much you want to try to, do as much as you can for your kids, like if your kid is not primarily in that home all the time and you do have another kid with,
Mhm.
the person you're married to
Yeah,
and that you're living life with, it's a big difference.
yeah,
And from the outside looking in, it may seem like, you're doing more for one than the other,
Mhm.
but that's 100% not the intention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because
Yeah.
it's a terrible feeling, especially as me being a father, right? It's a terrible idea that I can't put her in soccer up
Mhm.
here, but my son's doing soccer. We had soccer yesterday, right?
Mhm.
And my daughter sitting on the sideline, and I'm looking at her like maybe she wants to do something. Like let
Mhm.
me, and then again, when I do put her in something that's just it's really not that convenient,
Right.
and so I go out my way to do everything to make it more convenient for the other parent as
Mhm.
well to have some type of um enjoyment for my daughter to have fun as with
Mhm.
soccer, gymnastics, and
Right.
that's what we were talking about earlier, gymnastics and what programs you're going to put her in. And
Mhm.
when you had said something earlier about soccer, you
Mhm.
have soccer for your daughter, you have soccer for your stepson,
Mhm.
and they're two different locations,
Right.
right? So that's a sacrifice you're going to
Yeah.
make. You have to leave. Your day is going to be consumed with travel
Yeah.
of going to this facility, then you got to go to this facility,
Yeah.
and you got to quickly grab lunch because it's a battle. And that's why I tell myself like I failed my daughter. I couldn't make the relationship work with my ex,
Mhm.
and my daughter is not going to be exposed to everything
Mhm.
that I'm going to have my son exposed
Yeah.
to. And it's a sucky feeling. Like it's not a fun feeling to have.
Yeah. And I mean, and I think of it in she will have the same experience so much of like the love that you guys
Yeah,
bring
yeah.
inside the house,
Mhm,
but it
mhm.
is the difference in that is going between two different households and still having two different disciplines that are implemented in the household. And that's confusing to the child as well, right?
Absolutely.
Because now it may be something you're totally okay. Your ex may be okay with the makeup and everything else, but you're like, okay, hold on now. That's probably something too early. We need to talk about
Yeah,
that later.
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
not a thing right now. But she's getting one different thing at a household as well. So it's the disciplines that come in that I think also triggers children to kind of just have to go through that process and learn
Mhm.
to as to, okay, this may work here, but it's not going to work over here. And I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
that discipline that sometimes kids are get miscued as they move along the lines and going between two different households there as well.
So that's definitely something with my daughter we struggled with, because I'm remarried. My daughter has different roles at her mother's
Mhm.
house. But we've been very fortunate that my daughter has accepted, my wife as her stepmom, and they get along great, man. They
Yeah,
love
yeah.
spending time together. But there is some sacrifice there that, eventually it's going to change things if we do have another kid.
Yeah.
You know, is that going to change the way my daughter thinks about it? You know, and that's
Mhm.
going to be probably another hurdle that we have to, you know, accept and overcome.
Yeah. The beauty about it is if you can find a significant other
Mhm.
that accepts your child,
Mhm.
and it speaks volume to me because Naya, my daughter, well, she'd rather, if we're in two different vehicles going to someplace, she'd rather go with my wife than with me. And I'm like, damn, that sucks.
Yeah.
But I'm glad about that though.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it makes
100%.
me
My
feel
daughter
comfortable.
does that as well. You know, when she was playing basketball, she would, if we had to drive two separate cars, because, you know, what we had to do after the game,
Mhm.
my daughter wants to like get in the car with my wife and go with her
Yeah.
instead of ride with me. You know,
Yeah.
it kind of like hurts feelings a little bit, but then you're like, well, man, I'm glad I have that. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
at least she's not like hugging to my hip, like not wanting to go with her stepmother.
Yeah. Yeah. You spoke about discipline earlier, just a few minutes ago, and that is key, because two different disciplines, two different ways of being disciplined at two different households could mess. I feel like, I'm no psychologist,
Mhm.
I'm no psychiatrist,
Yeah.
I don't know expert on any of this shit.
Right,
I just, I speak from personal experiences. And with my daughter going to two different households, I feel that, maybe it could mess with her psyche. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That worries me. That
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
like, I'm with dad this week and I'm with my mom next week. Like, would that affect her emotionally,
Mhm.
and that just worries me,
Yeah.
especially being in this world that we're in today. Like, what is that? She gonna have daddy issues? She gonna have mommy issues? I mean, what
Yeah.
it bothers me, and hell, sometimes I lose sleep over it. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
But
And
that's with anything, even with my son,
Yeah.
right? Am I raising him properly? Am I
Mhm.
giving him the proper tools to succeed in life?
Mhm.
Am I doing this enough to make him a well-rounded human being?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, also behind disciplines, I think between two different households, as children start to age, there's also a little bit of just like manipulation, if you will,
Oh
that they're
yeah.
Yeah,
learning along the way
100%.
because they're going to learn that,
Mhm.
okay, I know that what's not going to fly over here will fly over here. So let me see if I'm on, with the schedule you have set up with your ex, that it's like, okay, I may not be able to go to this party because of my dad. He said no, but I know mom's gonna probably say yes on this as long as I got my phone or whatever. Like the discipline, like at some point they learn how to manipulate the discipline
Yeah.
between two different households, kind of either turn you against each other sometimes in your house, or even with maybe your son, he may ask you for a snack, but your wife may say no. And the
Yeah.
same thing with
Yeah.
in our household, my daughter knows to go after mama. And if she goes to ask her, she may say no, but my daughter's gonna come and ask me, and I'm probably gonna say yes 9 times out of 10, depending on what it is. But
Yeah.
it's like they learned how to manipulate the two different parenting styles and disciplines inside of a house. I mean, it's just something they just pick up on along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just something, we're all doing this for the first time. Being
Yeah.
a parent, we're a parent for the first time. Our parents were parents for the first
Yeah.
time. So, sometimes I hold things against my parents that, maybe my kids are gonna hold against me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I
Yeah.
try to avoid and correct those problems that I had growing up, you know what I mean? And give my children a better life than I had. I mean, we all grew up in the same, he grew up East Nashville. We all grew up in East Nashville and we grew up, kind of rough.
Yeah.
Um, starting out with when me and my ex broke up, I had a really tough time, adjusting. Once we broke up, my daughter was one thing. She was pregnant when we weren't together, and
Mhm.
so I would pick up my daughter. And at that time, I was, on someone's couch. I was on my dad's couch, basically.
Mhm.
And one core memory that sticks out to me, and kind of what drives me today, is me. I remember her being like 2 months old, just I'm a little bitty baby.
Mhm.
Um, and it's dead of winter. She was born in October. This was probably December, January, somewhere around there. And me and my daughter on this pleather ass couch on my dad's couch, and hell, we're off in some boondocks somewhere. And he had central heat and air in the home, but it didn't really work in the living room. Like it was just a big open room, so it didn't really fill that room up like it did the other rooms. And so I remember fondly that me and my daughter just, sleeping on this pleather ass couch, right? And I'm trying to balance myself and her, and I was like, I can't. This ain't what I'm gonna do. This ain't the life I'm gonna give my daughter. I want better.
Yeah.
So that is a really core memory of me. Like, I got to get my shit together.
Yeah.
So have you guys ever had that moment where when, your child was first born, or hell, a few years ago, or even before when she had announced the pregnancy, like, I got to fucking really do it now? Did you guys ever experience anything of that nature?
Yeah, 100%. When it comes to, being told you're going to be a dad, that's a lot on you, especially when you grew up with just one parent, or, in some cases you didn't have another parent to go to.
Yeah.
And that's how I grew up. So, it changes things. You're like, I want to give, my daughter the best life.
Yeah.
But, you don't think about, okay, in a couple of years, I'm going to be picking her up and it's just going to be me and my daughter. That's something that, you really don't anticipate on. But over time, it makes you strive to be the best that you can be.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't think I necessarily had like a moment that I was
That
like, okay,
shit moment.
I gotta get my shit together.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think for me specifically, I'm the oldest in my family, and I had younger siblings, of course, that, it was some nights that, oh man, I didn't have an opportunity to go out, right? Because it's watch your siblings. And throughout that time, I think it kind of prepared me, even though it looks a little different in the scope, but it kind of helped prepare me for fatherhood in that's a respect of like taking care of somebody, and you have the responsibility to take care of someone.
Yeah.
But I mean, even still to this day, I mean, that's something that's just constant, like in my head consistently, that I like, man, I could be doing something better. Like you talked earlier about perfectionists. I could be doing something better. I need to be making sure I'm doing this. Am I setting the best example? Am I setting, am I setting the household up for success? That's always the big thing for me. That's like, okay, especially once you're married in that space, you constantly have to show up in that regard and be that. So it's like, no, I'm constantly on that clock. And then when I joke about it with my brother sometimes, but I'm like, man, when I say I'm tired, I'm not tired of, I'm just like, I'm physically just tired. My body's just tired. I need to like rest. It's not like I'm tired of responsibility, tired of this. It's just, no, like my body just needs that rest from I'm just that tired for when I say that. But yeah, I don't think I had like that moment that it was like, nah, man, I gotta
moment.
Step up to this. Like, nah.
Yeah, so that's so I didn't when growing up, I was the youngest, so I didn't grow up around kids. So there was a lot that I had to learn. My daughter was only, I think, 2 years old when I had to go pick her up, and that co-parenting, which it's kind of difficult being being a guy, because you still you want to make sure you bring your daughter up to the point where like she's comfortable, what I'm saying, and stuff. So like it was a lot to learn. Like I learned so much when it was just me and her versus I think I would learned if it was like in a household with two people.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Because you had to give your undivided attention to this tiny human being and solely be the the playtime and the the nurture. And sometimes with Kenya, with my wife, she most of the time she takes care of the kids, and I'm I go off playing video games or something. And if, like you said, in that situation, I couldn't do that with my child. I'd have to, if it was just me, I'd have to be the entertainment, provide the food, keep them busy, occupied, and I couldn't have that alone time to myself. So I appreciate my wife wholeheartedly for all that she does, especially for my household.
Yeah.
So do you guys feel, or do you guys worry about that that you're preparing your children or child for all that the world offers? You know, because sometimes, like I said before, it worries me
Mhm.
that, you know, maybe like if they hit you, hit their ass back. Is that a way that we should be? You know, that worries
yeah. I
me.
mean, that's how I grew up. You know,
yeah.
that's something I was always taught growing up.
Yeah.
You don't start it, but you finish
finish
it.
it.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah.
don't back down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I fortunately I haven't had to really get to that point with my
Yeah,
daughter yet.
yeah,
But my personal opinion, you always defend yourself. You
yeah,
always,
Mhm.
Mhm.
so I'm gonna probably, continue to carry that out.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the examples. I mean, there's so many of life lessons that you could teach. Be a generous person. Be a nice
Mhm.
person. Am I giving my children the tools
Yeah.
to make them a complete person? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, it, my daughter's sweet. My son's a little asshole right now.
Mhm.
But is he gonna grow out of that? Is he
Yeah.
going? You know, I mean, is
Yeah.
he going to do this?
Mhm.
And he's just a little asshole to me. I don't know, maybe because I'm an asshole to him. Maybe
Mhm.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
teaching him. But you know, it always worries me, like the tools to
Yeah.
succeed in life.
Yeah.
And this time develops them to who they're gonna be.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? As much as I hate to say it, I am my mother to an extent. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I learned, even though I kind of, developed it in my own way,
Mhm.
but I can see traits of my mother and my father in me.
Mhm.
And, like, damn. So that makes me think, like, okay, am I teaching this life lesson right now? Am I teaching it properly? Is my son and my daughter receiving this message
Mhm.
properly? And it just worries me. You don't want to raise no damn serial killer, you know.
Right,
No, there is and I can't recall where I heard it at before, but it was said you look like your parents, but you die looking like your choices, and that's the thing for me that means a lot to, like, you came into this world looking like your parents, but you die looking like your decisions that you made, and that's where I take away from that of I want to make sure that whenever God takes me off this earth, that I have instilled in you the ability to think through processes
Mhm.
and to know that there are consequences and there's a right thing to do. And if you're going to do the right thing, do it because you feel moved to do it, not because you see someone else watching you, right? Like it's a character building moment. But
Yeah.
I want you to do the right things when you need to do it. And I want to make sure that you can make choices for yourself. And it's kind of that one thing of, when you're talking with your friends but it's like, oh man, but do whatever you want to do type of thing.
Yeah,
You kind of step back.
yeah,
It's that same thing for me. It's not like I want to do that, but I want to be able to help you through the choices now and to help
Mhm.
you make a decision to where hopefully down the line that it's like, okay, I've done enough for you.
Mhm.
Now let me let you go and figure this out on your
Yeah,
own.
yeah.
Same thing, we take kids to the playground. You talked about it earlier. You're trying not to have your kids, when you get hit somebody back. Because my
Yeah,
daughter,
yeah.
she's not necessarily going through it at school, but she tells me about a particular student there at her school, and I'm like, I've kind of, hey, stay away from this individual. Hey, don't play with this individual, but I don't want to isolate her and teach her, like, hey, isolation's a thing. But
Yeah.
I've also told teaching, I'm like, all right, like, hey, she's only 4, she's only how to do so much.
Mhm.
But I'm like, I don't want it to go to the phase where I'm like, okay, if you
Yeah.
get hit this person back now, because we're just not going to do this, and you think it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I need to teach you, like, yeah, what they're doing is not right to you.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you need to now, here is what your next defense mechanism is. You
Mhm.
stayed away from the individual. Now they put their hands on you. I'm not telling you to go and tell the teacher now anymore. I'm telling you now, go ahead and hit them back.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like find out. Like,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
And it's just
yeah.
that thing of fuck around, find out, basically. So yeah, that's like my take to that.
It definitely becomes a balance with that because, if you tell your kid that, you don't want them kind of starting it either.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
it gives them motivation. Ain't gonna
Gives
get
them-
in trouble at
yeah,
home.
exactly. I can just
But-
tell daddy that they hit me first. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And-
And there's definitely a balance with that.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's kind of a hard thing to do. You don't want to tell them to hit them, but you want them to understand, kind of like you were
Yeah.
saying, you want them to understand, like, you know, that balance between the two. You know, stay away from it, try to do everything you can to prevent it.
Mhm.
But, you know, at the end of the day, you have to take up for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we are those little voices, and our parents are those little voices in our heads,
Mhm.
even whether we like it or not. You know, I catch myself. You know, sometimes I catch myself. Last night, tonight was doing homework on a computer,
Mhm.
and she was doing some math work that she knows how to do.
Mhm.
I'm like, Tanaya, you know how to
Yeah.
do this. What's the issue? It was
Mhm.
basically finding factors or something. It
Mhm.
was like 72 equals blank times blank, and you had like 4 different boxes, and they couldn't be the same number.
Right.
And I'm like, find the factors. Like, how many is 72 an odd number or even number?
Mhm.
It's even, so okay, you start with 2, that works, and then find the next one. So go from 3. If 3 doesn't work, go to 4. If 4 didn't work, go to 5. And it got to one problem. She was basically, I was like, okay, now double check your work. Okay, you found this, because she was getting a few of them wrong. I was like, this is a way to double check your work to make sure it's done properly.
Mhm.
Since you have the box filled, now do multiply. Now do the problem out and make sure it equals that. And so she was doing one problem, and I was like, tonight, and I was a little aggressive with it. And sometimes I do with homework,
Yeah.
if Adam had 2 fucking apples, I don't get to that extent, but I get like, Tanaya, come on now.
Yeah,
like,
you know,
what's the
aggravating.
issue?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know how to do this. And I'll get to that tone. And I was like, okay, I can't do that. I mean, it sends bad messages to her. Like, well, maybe, and I'm thinking now, like a day from what we went through of what we were doing. And I'm looking like, okay, is she in her head thinking, okay, I'm not smart enough for this, or am I? And that shit worries me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like even everything, their minds are so young and they're growing and developing at any age, in my household, that everything is being consumed. Everything is me seeing me love my wife is being consumed.
Yeah.
And this is the proper way. I mean, me and Kenya we don't really typically have any arguments or anything, but if we do have disagreements, we try not to have the kids in the same environment to see it.
I'm just gonna ask a question though, and because I've caught myself having to go through that same process, and I'm gonna ask, did you apologize at the end of it?
No, I don't think I've ever. I mean, it happens occasionally, right? It happens, but I applaud her for getting. I'm like, see, you're doing a good job. You can do this.
Yeah.
Like, I do that, but I don't come out and say, I'm sorry for getting a little mean.
Yeah.
Maybe I should. Maybe that's good.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I've started to I had to start getting to that point to realize that, like,
they're kids.
They're kids.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm letting them being a kid is frustrating me. And that's a problem. And I looked at myself, and I remember the other night, my daughter wanted her she has a light in her room on her sound machine, and she wanted it on. And I was like, nah, man, hey, you're fine without this. She just needs a sound. And I just remember her like crying in her room. And I just remember I like burst through the door, and it was more just like anger and frustration from me at that point.
Yeah.
But I went back into the man cave, and I sat down for a minute. I was like, man, nah, that's stupid as hell. I can't believe I just did this. And she's 4. Like, I'm being an asshole right now.
It makes you feel bad.
And it makes you feel bad. So I remember I sat there for like a minute, and I got up and I said, no, I need to go apologize. And I walked in there, turned on the light, and I apologized to her, gave her a hug, and I was like, all right, just hey, going back to bed, and I'll turn on the sound machine light. But I was like, we're not gonna make this a habit of turning this on. But I was like, I was a complete asshole, and I need to apologize for that. And that's maybe just ask, because I know as dads, as parents, that's one of the things, like, your emotions start to kind of get to you, you know, from work to
Oh yeah,
school to all these
absolutely.
other things. And you're like, man, I can go with somebody right now. And it's just your kid might have done that one little thing that just tip you right over that iceberg. And it's like, I came down on you for no reason. It's not even you. I need to look at myself and process that. So that's what made me just ask, because I was like, I realized I was completely out of line in that moment. I had to apologize to my daughter because I want her to be able to do that too. That's the thing I want to do.
Yeah, so I've had to apologize to my daughter before. You know, you get a little frustrated and kind of like said over something small, you know, when you could just, you know, let them do that one thing and it'd be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, over the years since my daughter's 7 now, if she does something and she knows it frustrates me, she will actually come and apologize to me now.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, that's huge.
It's a big deal, you know. And same thing, you know, if she kind of gets out of line with my wife, she will actually go and apologize to her. You know, and that's a big deal. You know, in our house,
go ahead.
We don't allow like slamming doors or anything like that. You don't stomp off. You don't go slam doors. You know, it's a sign of disrespect.
Yeah.
So
I don't in that aspect of going to apologize. I don't want, you know, I'm gonna play devil's advocate at this point. I don't want my children to think I'm right. That's why they should apologize to me every time. Because sometimes we both may not be in the right or wrong. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just a clash of people.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
And
for sure.
and I don't want I don't think that my child should come up to me and say I'm sorry, because I was also a part of that problem. You know what I mean?
Usually, if she does, I will actually apologize
as well.
I don't leave it one.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? That's big. That's big.
But yeah, if you did leave it one sided, I could definitely see where that could create some issues.
Yeah. Because their minds are so young, man. They're
apologetic.
They're just you're developing their personality, and dude, that's scary. I'm developing these two tiny beings into people that's gonna go out into the world. They're gonna be good, they're gonna be bad. My hands are tied once they leave my household. Right. So that's why I'm like, dude, am I doing? Because you know, I'm sure there's serial killers out there that, you know, they had a great upbringing, you know what I mean? But there was something that one thing that triggered that could have triggered that fuck, I'm gonna go kill everybody. You know what I mean? And you know,
but I also think out of that, you know,
statistically speaking,
and it's also sometimes in that process of parenting growing up that whoever that person's parents were did not recognize certain signs before it got there, right? Like it just didn't happen. Like if it'd be different if you had to murder someone who came into your house, right? Like your first instinct ain't to sit back and say, like, who's at my door? No, you coming out, you gun first, ask questions second. And that's the thing for me, like to know that somebody had gone through that process there to something led to them to do that. And we don't know what their upbringing was. And it's literally sometimes upbringing that develops people and how they see things and then see it as being okay or not being okay.
Right. But or it's kind of like we were talking about earlier, taking up for yourself. You know, that kid could have been bullied.
Yeah.
You know, if they're bullied, being raised, growing up through school, developing hatred towards people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? So that's, you know, there's so much stuff that we got to focus on and try to make sure, you know, our children understand, you know, the proper ways. You know, handling certain situations and knowing every situation is different.
And I think there will be certain things along the way there, right, that are character building moments, right? Sure. That you're gonna have to learn this, and this is how you build character. Because I mean, we, you know, Stratford and Maplewood, those are, you know, two schools that are completely different. I think there was one character building moment for me that you had to, you know, what they call it, burning at the time. Like, man, you're getting roasted at school. Like that built character, right? That tells you, man, if you're getting flamed up, It's okay. It's
but you have to consider the other side of that. Right. If you're not burnt, like there were people that were getting burned on that were getting picked on, basically.
Right. That were going too far.
Yeah. So if it wasn't a mutual, and then that still develops, you know, that develops insecurities about yourself. Yeah. Like, oh, my dad, I got on some kind of dusty white horses, and we can't afford.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, okay,
Right.
Now I'm insecure about
Exactly.
not dressing the nicest. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it has its pros and cons, I guess.
Definitely.
I guess it is a balance too.
Yeah, it's a balance
you
to
know.
it. Just finding that balance though. Is
Yeah.
Where's that line getting
Yeah.
drawn too far?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing I try to make my daughter understand is, you're not going to be given everything in life.
Yeah.
So you got to understand, like, everybody's life is different. So if you want something, you got to work towards it.
Yeah.
It's kind of going back to somebody that can't afford shoes and stuff like that. You can also give a kid too much.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
now they're the ones that's making fun of that kid that can't afford the shoes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely. But I also think that, out of that, there's still teachings behind that too, right?
Yeah.
The one that got it,
sure.
oh, you got everything. And it's like what the parents say now. I have everything. You ain't got shit right now.
I told my daughter, I literally told my daughter, like, everything in this house is mine. Like, I let you borrow this.
Yeah.
So like, and that's one way of discipline, like how I normally will take effect on discipline.
Yeah.
Is I'm gonna take my tablet back.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's my
Yeah.
tablet anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna take it back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So have you guys, I know it's really entirely too young, it's too early to say anything about the talks to your kids, especially you guys having daughters, right? Have you guys thought or put any thought to any of the talks, whether it's, boys, friends in general, like be careful with your friends, like,
Yeah.
that gives me anxiety just thinking about, because the world is a lot faster than, and it seems like every year is getting faster and faster.
Definitely.
Have you guys considered or even prepped yourself? I don't know if it's something that you can find out in one day or a year. I think it's just years and years of figuring out of how I'm gonna start this conversation.
Yeah.
Have you guys put that into effect yet, or anything like of that nature?
no, I haven't.
Makeup.
Honestly, I haven't thought about it on anything that drastic. But I feel like a lot of that has to do with your kid respecting you as well. If your kid don't respect you, then they ain't worried about coming home getting in trouble.
Yeah.
So and it ain't even about the discipline. It's the fact that they respect you to the point they don't want to let you down.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you got to take that. But no, I haven't. I dread them days when it comes to some talks like that, and that's why I'm grateful. I am married and I do have a wife now that can help me with that.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, just like I said, playing devil's advocate again, if some type of discipline causes them to be a rebel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You always hear the infamous, that's a preacher's daughter. Like, that's the most, you would think that's the most, strict household, just from outside, being outside and looking in, am I doing this now? Am I developing this person to be a rebel? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
you can definitely be too strict.
Yeah.
If you shelter, I feel like if you shelter your kid, that's kind of when you get in that situation.
Yeah.
Like I said, preacher's daughter. A lot of times their shelter. It's a little different than respect, and they respect you versus you just shelter them.
Yeah.
You control what they do. I let my daughter make her own decisions, but at the end of the day, like, I've got to teach her that right and wrong decision.
Yeah. But you also, in that aspect, you were talking about the tablet earlier, and the tablet's big in today's world, right? With the damn tablet kids. Just keeping track of what she has access to. Like my kids, like even YouTube Kids at this point is not, from what I've seen, is not a good site for kids to be using. And could that be a being too strict type of punishment? You know what I mean? It's like, well, my friend down the street watching YouTube Kids has his own, gets on YouTube or TikTok, and why can't I do it? So could that then develop that being a rebellious kid? It's scary. It's a scary moment.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it could create a rebellious kid, but I think the one thing that I have come to learn is you have to also explain the why as to why you're doing something.
Yeah, I respect that.
And you can sit back and take away the tablet, but if
Yeah.
you don't tell the kid why you took away the tablet,
yeah.
they never learned the lesson.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing for me where I tell my daughter, there are times where I'll take her tablet, and it's like you said earlier, certain shows on YouTube Kids don't even need to be watching it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say the shows, but the shows she watched, I see her picking up on the habits of it. And that's where I'm like, okay, no, I'm taking away your tablet because you were watching something I told you not to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I explained the why to her. And next thing you know, I'll pull up YouTube and we're going to watch Busy Beavers. We're going to watch educational shows because you can't watch the right shows on your tablet that I've given you access to. Like I put the restrictions on there and stuff, but I'm going to at least tell you the why I took something away so you learn from that. And if Timmy down the street's mom is doing whatever, guess what? That's their household, and that's not my kid.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, but you're going to learn a lesson, and I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. I think explaining the why really brings respect, but also brings trust to that relationship as well when you're talking with your kids.
Absolutely, I can respect that. I think that's very important into discipline, explaining why you're doing this, and not just taking it, but getting detailed of why you taking it. You not just saying, well, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah,
like, well, let's break it down on why you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. But I mean, just to segue back to the talk conversation, I mean, that's something that I'm not right now prepared for. And like you said, Daniel, I'm lucky to have a wife. But I know at some point it's gonna need to be a talk, right?
Oh, for sure.
And I think the thing for me that was helpful again of having younger siblings is, as they get older and we were all young once at one point, right? We knew what we were thinking at that time.
Exactly.
But it's like you have to be able to kind of to teach that game, and also to teach. Okay, not everybody, right, is going to be your friend. Like you're going to go out there, you're going to meet people, and sometimes you have to. I hate to say the word test them, but you literally do have to test where people are and seeing if they are your friend and do they hold true to their values. But you'll see those things along the way. Like even from my high school days, there's not a lot of people. Like a lot of people knew of me. I knew of a lot of people, but I kept my circle small. I was like, man, I don't trust a lot of people, and it's because I seen how people were moving around in high school and what they did, and I was like, okay, I know who I'm going to keep in contact with after I go off to college and so forth from there. And still the same people that are still at that moment. I'm like, I don't have to let any new people in here, but I think you can teach that along the way as to how do you see trust in people, how do you build respect for people, but then also how do you keep your circle tight knit to where it is that that village, your village, and that you guys got what you guys need to take from there and move forward. But I'm not ready for that talk. I mean, even before the talk, I think there's the fact of, we all have daughters, and at some point they're going to have a period, right? And we're going to have to, you're probably get a phone call while they're at school and it happens, and you're going to have to get off work, and, you may have to call your wife. All right, what do I get? What is this? So, and they'll help you through that process. Mom probably help you through that process as well, but you can't physically talk your daughter through what that experience is going to be like.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a different experience. That's one of the experiences that talk really needs to come from the mom or stepmom or whatever the situation is where the issue occurs. But that would be a hard talk for say if we didn't have a wife or somebody to help us with that, or your mom wasn't in the picture. And that's definitely something we ain't gonna have to probably have that talk.
But I think don't let that be two-sided. And when I say that, Rachel, you have a son too, as that don't the both parties need to get the talk there.
Absolutely.
It's not like a
and and I'm not saying that both don't need to talk, but as far as the female talks, it's good they have their mother or stepmom and all that to help them with that.
Definitely.
So do you guys feel that you guys had the proper tools growing up to step into to being a father? Do you
So yes, and the reason why I say yeah, even though I didn't have, younger siblings and all that,
Mhm.
my dad raised us essentially by himself.
Mhm.
So going through that and seeing what my dad did and all that,
Yeah.
like, I learned from how my dad raised us.
Yeah.
It wasn't always the best situation or whatever, but there was, he did what he could do, and I learned from that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm getting a little echo.
I'm noticing, and
I can't figure out why. Can you hear it now?
Yeah.
Still hear it?
I can still hear the echo though.
I don't know why.
Yeah, but
About
now,
now.
That's
now
good
it's
now.
gone. That's good.
That's
Yeah.
good. Okay.
know.
It's like I had to keep having to mute it and unmute it.
So
So
yeah, go ahead.
going into the proper tools, I don't know. I can't say that it's hard for me to say. I feel like my parents instilled certain things into me,
Mhm.
but certain things I think I learned from them to not do.
Yeah.
If that
for
makes
sure.
sense.
Yeah.
Nah,
100%
and I mean
yeah.
out of that, you have to pick up on the good and the bad
Yeah,
along the way.
uh-huh.
And I say that because as I kind of look back, you know, my all of my other three siblings, we have different dads. Except
Mhm.
my two younger sisters, they have the same dad. But I think out of that, if you didn't learn along the way as to what, like, when your mom was dating whoever, your dad was dating whoever, if you didn't pick up on habits along the way that you were like, oh man, that they're horrible at X, Y, and Z like that. If you don't pick up on those things of what you want to be a father as and what you see that example of, like, you'll pick up along the way, right? It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
But for myself personally, my dad was gunned down 2 months before I was born. So never got to meet him.
Mm.
But I mean, from my uncles to my coaches, those were like the father figures that I could look up to and say,
Mhm.
okay, man, this is the proper way to go about being a father, right? But
Yeah.
there's the one thing that I've come to learn: there's no manuscript to it. You just
No.
have to kind of
Mm-mm.
it's case by case scenario, and
Yeah.
you just kind of have to navigate it. And it's an ever growing journey, and I'm sure women say the same thing about motherhood. It's just that it's just
Yeah,
something that
yeah.
you're constantly going to be learning along the way, and you're gonna have successes and you're gonna have failures along that pathway.
That's powerful for you, Daniel, to growing up in a household without a mother, and then you, Q, growing in a household without a father.
Mhm.
That statistically, I don't know if you guys were supposed to make it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right. Right.
So, in my opinion, and maybe I haven't looked at statistics about it
Mhm.
at all, but a two-parent household, of course,
Yeah.
is going to be prosperous as
Right.
opposed to a one-parent household.
Exactly.
Because me looking, like I said, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a
Mhm.
psychiatrist, I'm not an expert on any of this matter, but me looking at, and most people looking at someone who was raised in a, just a dad, just having a dad,
Mhm.
I would say you lack emotional attachment or some type of emotional, and it's like I said, it's case by case, just like
Mhm.
you were saying, right?
No, I do, not to cut you off, but I do agree with that.
Yeah.
It took me a long time in my adult life to kind of develop like emotions and
Mhm.
kind of
Sharing
understand
those and
the
expressing it.
the caring part,
Mhm.
and that's something over the years I learned, and I definitely think I had to grow into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see that being an issue.
Yeah.
Just like with you. I mean, Q, I mean, not having a father in house, but you
Mhm.
said you looked up to your uncles. I mean, I mean, it was lucky for you to have those
Yeah.
models and someone to take you under their wing, because a lot of people out here don't have that.
Yeah.
So that's big into even having a two-parent household,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes we or even our children may look outside for
Mhm.
for additional
Yeah,
support. You know what I mean?
definitely.
From aunts,
Yeah.
uncles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't talk to dad or mom
Yeah.
about this. I'm gonna go to aunt so and so or
Mhm.
uncle so and so or
Yeah.
my coach. You know, and that's big because it takes a village.
It does. Yeah.
You know, they're gonna get our children are going to get so much knowledge and from us,
Mhm.
but they're not with us, you know,
Right.
most of the time during the day. You know,
Yeah.
they're at school, so
Mhm.
we have to watch and monitor what's going on at school. I had
Yeah.
an issue, you know, with my daughter, right, with her cell phone. She was given a cell phone, not by me, of course, but by our mom, and which I didn't approve of then. I still don't approve of. I still didn't. Oh, she doesn't have it now, but I didn't approve of it. Didn't approve of when she had it, and her mom never talked to me about it, which is, I mean, it's fine. Okay, I'm going to respect that. If she wants to have a phone, we're going to see how this plays out. You know. So I mean, it played out for a few months, but then it got into the boyfriend phase, right? I'm like, where the hell did you learn from about a boyfriend?
Yeah.
Well, there was one friend in their friend group, right? And then it just spread like wildfire. You can go through texts and like one girl was saying, I got a boyfriend. Well, I got a boyfriend now, and I got a boy, and they're just trying to compete like we were doing,
Yeah.
you know, I back in my day, we weren't virgins in 8th grade. Nah, I done fucked 10 girls, you know what I mean? So, and it's all about competing. So we also have to watch the friend group as well that keeps around our children, because they're a big influence from what they're taught from their parents or what they're seeing in their life. We can't control that, but they're gonna give some of that information, knowledge of what they've received amongst their friends. And like I said, it's scary and scary.
No, I mean, it's it's very different now because, like we said earlier, kids have access to phones. They have access to the internet. They're able to connect in multiple different ways, right? Like back then, I didn't get my first cell phone until I was, I think, like 7th, 8th grade when I first got my first cell phone, right? And it was that old Kia Sarah. And at first, it was a Nokia. So shout out Drake there. But Nokia was my first phone. And my mom got it for me because at that point, I was, going to community center. I was out with friends. I was playing travel ball. So at that point, I was constantly like on the go. So it was a need for a phone at that time. But I think that, again, the internet has kind of pushed kids to grow up earlier than what they need to. And I saw the other day that was I forget what his name is, but he was a principal, and he went to, now he's like a motivational speaker, and he went in to talk to a school, and he talked about, kids don't grow up into adulthood too early, right? Like, you don't really want this life. This shit's it had its pros and it has its cons, that's for sure, right?
But we done that. I mean, we wanted to
do the
grow
same
up.
thing.
Yeah, we wanted to grow up faster.
Yeah, and I mean, it's because you think you're able to do what you want to do when you want to do it, right? Like, but that's not always the case once you hit a certain age. Like, that's just not going to happen. But yeah, I think that's the problem though. Like, as they now have cell phones, they have things that are just more instant, and they're able to connect at a younger age. That, again, unless you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're constantly like monitoring what they're doing, but you want to be able to hopefully build that trust there that they come and talk to you about those things. And I think the other thing is also being accessible to where they can't come and talk to you. I think a lot of times people cut off their access on being available to talk with their kids. And I think there was some study done not that long ago, but they talked about like the parent, and they take the kid to school. They come from school. They may go to gym. They may do X, Y, and Z. But then by the time they get home, the day's already kind of over. And you never really got that time to connect with your kid throughout the day. And I mean, think about it, from Monday to Friday, and all you got is Saturday and Sunday, and that's the time you're trying to connect with your kids. That's a lot. That's a long time to be able to for the stuff to happen before you get to anything. So I kind of agree with you on, limiting the phone access. Some things given too early can be a curse, and monitoring that. But also, what does that access look like at a certain point, right? Because she's gonna say, well, all my friends have phones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But is there a happy medium, right? Can we do an iPad,
Yeah.
and iPad stays here, but maybe it's, you can FaceTime, you can text from
Roblox.
there, and there's certain things, but there's like, okay, your access is kind of cut off at a certain point, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think figuring out what that happy medium is, if it's I know some kids have like the smartwatch that you as a parent can get a hold of them if you need to, but what does that restriction and happy medium look like in that co-parenting phase there? I think it's a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said something about kids staying kids, as long as they can. Man, dude, it was maybe a month ago, I took my children to the circus, and everywhere we go, whether it's circus, Monster Jam or whatever activity we're doing, and they have, the dumbass light up toys and stuff that they have for $40 to $50. I always get it though. Like, I wasn't able to do that to get that when I was a kid, so I like to see them happy, and the lights go out, they light these damn toys up. We're standing in a line to get the toys, and Kingston picked out this monster truck kind of light up toy. Snai wanted this unicorn type toy, but we're probably 10 deep in line at this point. So we get up to the front of the line, and Kingston wants his monster truck toy, and because I asked him, I wanted to confirm what they want, and then I asked my daughter, I was like, "You want this one right here?" She's like, "No, I don't want it anymore." I'm like, "Well, which one do you want?" It's like, "I don't really want one," and I'm like, "Damn, is it? You don't want one anymore? Like, this is my little girl, and now you too big for a light up toy. I really don't want it anymore." Now she's into makeup, and like it's like watching them grow and phase out of stuff they were into, diapers to
Man, it's like it happens all at once too.
Yeah.
It's like you're so used to them watching the kid shows and the cartoons and stuff.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'd rather watch YouTube.
Yeah.
It's like, where'd that come from?
And that's the part that I think about, that sometimes, like the growing up part, right? And I think
sucks.
It does. And here's the thing, it hasn't, like, I see my daughter growing up, right? And from what she's learning in school to all the other things, but like I think about the things that are probably the milestones, right, along the way, that's probably gonna hit me and probably might potentially make me cry. Like I think about like her graduating out of preschool and going into kindergarten, right? Like you see that and you're like, but you're crying probably because, man, hold on, wait a minute, I'm getting old too. Like, hold on, like damn, hold on, like like it is moving too fast when you actually sit there and think about it.
Yeah,
and it's gonna be the same case from from that kindergarten going into first grade, from first to fourth, and then so forth from there. Like you're gonna feel emotional because you're like, man, damn, like I remember when you were this little, and now look at who you're becoming, and look at how you're impacting the world and changing things for yourself, and how you're seeing things. Like that to me is the part where, like, that's what gets me at the end of the day, because that's you're literally going back to, like, you are growing so fast along the way there.
You talking about us getting old. I remember, going from riding around with no insurance. And now I'm paying I got my insurance on auto pay. I'm like, that's crazy for me to have some of my bills on auto pay. To me, looking back to where I came from.
Yeah.
And now I'm paying into a 401k. Yeah, we are getting old.
But the good thing is we actually can do that now.
Yeah.
We didn't take the path that we could have took to not be able to do that.
Yeah.
We lead by example. So
Mm-hmm.
but we're definitely getting old, and it really makes you think about it, man.
Yeah, because I mean, and that just made me like think about like to know now that I know, like, if I go out and I'm gonna play basketball, right? Like I know that there is a high potential chance that I'm probably gonna get injured out there. And I'm like, I ain't got the time for this. And I said, I remember when I went through my knee surgery, and how long that was from that extensive process to where I'm like, man, no, I can't get out there and play. Man, I got kids, man. I got health insurance. That don't mean nothing. I'm like, do you know how long I'm gonna be down and off work if I get injured out here? Nah, man, I ain't got time for that. No.
You know how much it's gonna hurt after I get done with this?
Exactly. I'm like, nah, man, I'll let these what they call them, young YNs. Y'all got that, bro. I'll watch.
I'll sit on the side and watch.
Exactly.
So how do you guys approach? I know we spoke a little bit about it earlier, but how do you guys approach discipline, and has that changed and evolved over time since growing up? I can count on one hand how many times I've actually physically whooped my children,
Mhm.
and I now I can give him that dad stare, and we all know
Oh,
what that
yeah.
dad stare is, and give him that hey,
Yeah.
and just the stare, and then
Mhm.
that's it. And so it's over with.
Mhm.
But and just so a story time. Going back to a couple weeks ago, I was around this one kid, and I know his father, I know his mother, and he's a younger kid,
Mhm.
and I tried to give him the dad, hey.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, his dad's incarcerated, been
Mhm.
incarcerated pretty much all his life, which is
Mhm.
and it's not a his mom's in his life. Mom's
Mhm.
doing good, but not having that father figure in his life.
Mhm.
And he was a younger child. He was a younger child, young, a little younger than my son. And after I give him that, hey, and I looked at him, it just like it didn't phase. He didn't know
Yeah.
what the hell that was.
Yeah.
So, now that I can do that with my kids,
Mhm.
and to you fucking up, right? That
Mhm.
ain't what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
How do you guys how did you guys approach discipline, at early ages as opposed to now?
A lot of things I would actually do. It kind of goes back to the privilege of having stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because even as a younger age, like they still want that toy, or they still want
Yeah.
Mhm.
that some TV time. So I always try to instead of being physical, I always try to, like, okay, if you do this, you're going to lose this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that my daughter built respect over time from learning. Okay, well, if I do this, he gonna take my TV or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um, I can honestly say, man, I'm really blessed. My daughter does really good on her own. I couldn't, if you asked me to write a book on how to discipline a kid, I couldn't even do it. 'Cause, I mean, yeah, she's a good kid, man.
Yeah.
I go somewhere and I see kids running around and
Mhm.
throwing
Mhm.
stuff, and they're being kids, but then you
Yeah.
got them one kids that are just like 10 times over
Yeah,
top.
hell
Mhm.
on wheels.
And I look at them kids and I look at my daughter, and I'm like, man, I'm truly blessed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to tell you how I would do it, but I definitely, I got a lot of physical contact growing up,
Yeah.
and because I didn't have a whole, like, I didn't have a whole lot to, like, they could take from me to really make me like, oh, yeah, I ain't gonna
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
So
You're
so
getting
we got,
chastised.
yeah,
Mhm.
we got more physical. So I want my daughter to not have to experience that and understand, like, you always lose something by your choices.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of like there's a cause and effect, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing you want to try to teach them. But I mean, for myself growing up, discipline was the belt back then,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like it was the belt, it was the switch,
I
it
got
was
whooped by
the
teachers, so I
like,
remember growing
and
up.
they teachers they had paddles in the school back then, and it's like, and at that time, it's like, okay, why is this person putting physical hands on me? And well, I don't know what, kind of like we talked about earlier, I don't know what their tolerance is, right? And it could be the smallest thing that upsets them, yet they're whooping me. But like, yeah, no, it was like physical, like discipline back then. And I have not, gone to resort to that type of physical
Yeah.
with my kids, but it's just like I want to, and my wife and I joke about it sometimes, but like they don't listen to her sometimes, but they will. But
Mhm.
when I stand up or I say it, like
Yeah.
it's
The dad
it's
voice.
on.
Yeah.
Like there's not much else. And like, but I also know, like, if I start to like use my voice, that can just like take a toll on them and make them feel bad
yeah.
Mhm.
at the same time. But I want that to be like the reaction that they get. Like, I don't want to have to put my hands on you, because that's just not that's not going to solve the
Yeah.
issue.
Right. No, it's not.
I just want you to feel, I want you to feel bad about what you did to make me feel this way is the thing. Like, and know that you had to go to the extreme to make me feel this bad because of what you did. Like, that's what I want you to gather from that discipline there.
And you know, that's a great point, because, you know, there's multiple kinds of even verbally how you can handle stuff. Like there is a thing, like, you know, I call it soft parenting.
Yeah. Gentle parenting.
Or gentle parenting. You know, it's like, you know, so-and-so don't do that. And you say it 20 times. When do you stand up and be like, I said don't do that?
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, and if you never develop that becomes that kid that he ain't never gonna listen to you.
No.
Or she ain't never gonna listen to you.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
Yeah.
And that's hard especially once kids are in that cycle. It's hard to get them out of that cycle when they haven't had that before.
Oh, for
And
sure.
kind of like you said earlier, that the young man, like it's hard for them to come out of that.
Yeah.
When they don't see
know,
it.
they don't,
Or
exactly.
two, it's even the fact that they're like, well, you're not my dad. You're not my mom, right? 'Cause that's one of the things you hear out there. But it's like how I think you have to form a relationship with the kid to be able to get that to happen. And you know, it's the same thing with like a coach, right? Like you may have started on a new team, you know what his coaches bring, you don't know what his leadership is like, but you're gonna quickly find out, like, hold on now, man. When coach says this, he's serious. Like he's not playing around. I need to get my shit together.
But then again, I do want, especially my children, to respect others, even if this is a stranger walking down the street. Yes, sir. No, sir. I mean, I don't. If you know, I don't employ that. It's hard to say. Like if my kids are acting up in the grocery store with my wife, and someone of my, you know, if I didn't know Daniel or if I didn't know you, Q, and you were walking down the aisle as well, my kids were acting up, I would respect if y'all were like, hey, y'all better act right. You know what I mean? But it's almost insulting to someone to do that. Yeah.
Right.
But years ago, that was
a thing.
That was a thing.
That was a thing.
And I respect that. But it's hard to say I would want that. But again, I don't know. You don't know people. You don't know.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
Like in that scenario there, you know, I will feel like, hey, if my kids are not around me and they're acting up, somebody get on their ass. Somebody set them straight.
Yeah.
And my kids, it's like the little kid that I was giving the dad voice. I would want them to be able to learn and know to, hey, you respect this adult. The adult's telling you that you're doing something wrong. Now, I wouldn't want the adult to physically, you know, touch my children or anything like that. But saying, hey, don't be doing that. You know what I mean? I need my children to respect that voice and that person in that time.
Yeah. And I think behind that though, and my thing is, if like we were out, like say out somewhere, you saw my wife, saw my kids, and you like, I would want somebody I knew to like be like, oh, you know, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Like now, you know, you're not supposed to be doing that.
Absolutely.
But I also want to just say, like, I think sometimes some of like the bigger compliments that, you know, of parenting is when you're out somewhere and someone who does not know you, they're like, your kids are so well behaved.
Oh yeah.
Like that is a thing where like, nah, well, they know where
they bad as hell.
They
you
bad
don't know
as hell. They very well could be, but it's also like they know that if we're going somewhere, you're not about to act no fool. And that again, it's cause and effect. When okay, you can get in here and do this when you want, but once we up out of here, again, I'm not gonna put my hands on you, but I'm gonna remind you, oh, you remember when we were at Walmart and you did this? All right, so now this is why this is going away, because you can't act right in public. Don't do that, because you're making me look bad out here. Like I didn't give you any, what they say, home training. Like you ain't got no home training. Like what's wrong with you? So I think if I'm out, if I'm not in that space and someone's out and they see my kids acting a fool, like I want somebody to check that and bring it back in alignment, especially like just and I think just different environments, but like check whoever it is, and it's okay for somebody to kind of check you at the same time in that process too. Man, I can't believe you out here letting so and so do whatever. Like, nah, man, like you're not gonna say nothing about that. Like, no, like it's okay to check people.
Yeah, if y'all see my kids out in public y'all can set them straight if they acting that fool and out in the public.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think, but also too, I think you got to give people that clearance, right? You got to,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey, it's okay for you to do
You know,
this.
nowadays it's a lot different, man. Everybody, the best way I guess to say it is, you know, people's feelings get hurt a lot easier.
Oh
Than they
yeah.
used to.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's on up in arms, worried about, you know, somebody overstepping or
Mhm.
somebody saying something they shouldn't have said. You know, and that's one of the biggest problems we have as well.
Yeah.
With somebody, you know, doing that, like you're not around, but they're like, hey, you know better than that. You know, people don't do that no more because a lot of parents, you know, they're gonna call that person up if they know who it is, and
Yeah.
you know, they're gonna be like, you don't need to be talking to my kid like that.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to be your kid's friend,
Yeah,
be your kid's parent.
Yeah, exactly. There's all kinds of videos on that you see on like Facebook or TikTok or anything that, you know, you get just the ass end of the what happened,
Yeah.
and some kids are acting ass, or and an adult is approaching them and saying something, and then the parents get involved. Like, you don't talk to my kids like that, but realistically, you don't know why this man is approaching these kids. What these kids do to this man?
Yeah, they're only seeing
they're only seeing a part of it. And like, this
Yeah.
man shouldn't be telling these
It's
kids what to do.
one-sided, you know, and you may see a video from another angle and it'd be something
Completely different. Yeah.
AI is going to destroy this world. I think AI just from even the fucking videos. Like, I have friends that post videos that are, I mean, I can look that it's, I mean, if to the naked eye, for me to knowing, I can look and see that's AI. But then they're posting this video and it's some just nonsense, and they're believing this video.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get to a time in a day and age that we're not gonna know what the difference,
Right.
what real video footage is and what AI is. There was a video the other day. One of my friends posted it. It was basically like a high-speed car chase. Policemen were chasing this one car, but you can tell that it was AI generated, and this person was worried about this police chase, and like it was so animated that people were getting out the cars. The police car was coming down the road. It like fishtailed and smacked the person, but it looked real. I could completely understand how someone could say, oh, this might be real, but at the same time, I was like, this don't even fucking look right. You know what I mean? But we are gonna get to a time that is gonna be a scary time in the world of what we're not gonna know what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
You had said something earlier about your wife not being you know, when the kids don't run over, but they, you know, they kind of get a little rowdy with her as opposed to you. And particularly my son, right? My son does the same thing to my wife. But like I said, I give him that dad voice, and he knows. He's like, I'm gonna tell on you now. And then now he's upset at me, and my mom comes in to nurture him. In that aspect, I believe that, you know, he doesn't run over her, but he does get away with a lot more as opposed to me. But in that same aspect, I firmly believe that, statistically speaking, that a child needs a two-parent household, as far as one being a disciplinary, and then the other being a nurturer. My wife's the nurturer. She coddles him. I mean, she holds him, and he absolutely needs that. I don't say he doesn't. No, quit picking him up, because I want him to have that emotional connection, right, and to not lack in empathy, and as far as I'm concerned, I want him to have some discipline in his life. So I think that's a perfect storm. Not to say that he's gonna grow up to be a fucking, you know, create end world hunger or anything like that, but the probability of him being a fully structured human being is much higher than him just being with my wife or him just being with me. And I'm a firm believer in that. I'm not saying that a one parent household, because you both are, you know, came from that,
Mhm.
and you are prosperous right now.
Mhm.
But the probability,
Yeah.
I'm a gambling man,
Mhm.
so I want the odds in my favor.
Mhm.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
so that plays a huge role as far as a child's development.
Mhm.
So another question I want to ask you guys, since you both have, daughters, you know how you were as a child growing up, as a
Mhm.
teen, preteen growing up. If your daughter once they get to that dating age, if your daughter brung you a persona of you and home and said, like, this is my boyfriend,
Mhm.
how would you guys be okay with that concept?
I just want to ask clarifying questions here. So we talking about me at that age or me how I am now?
But
Right.
you
So
at
that's why
that age,
that age.
but
okay.
so if right, if the that this is how you grew up,
Mhm.
not to say y'all are going to be the same person, but
Right.
if you could potentially, if this
Mhm.
kid is going to be growing up to like you,
Mhm.
to be like you, who you
Mhm.
are today, and you guys share the same type of life,
Yeah.
from preteen to
Mhm.
teen to young adult to an adult,
Mhm.
how would you guys feel about that?
Um, I'm just gonna say if it were me at that time, I was
Kick his ass, huh?
no, cause I wasn't horrible.
Oh.
I'll say that. Like I'll say I was definitely respectable. Like I didn't
Yeah.
I mean, out of all my friends back then, my friends would have to get me to ask their mom to go out the house because their moms trusted me because they knew I wasn't going to do nothing stupid. Like they knew,
Good kid, yeah.
like they were like, man, that's a good kid. He ain't gonna go do nothing stupid. So yeah, you can go outside with him. So that's like, so yeah, I think at that age I was respectable enough to yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. It was just completely. I knew how to give respect basically
yeah.
at that time, and it wasn't nothing crazy that I was going to go out there and try and do. But if it were, I mean, I can't even think that I was just like, I, I don't say I just want wilding. Like, so yeah, I would be okay with
Mhm.
who my
You-
daughter would probably bring home at particular ages. But once they probably got to like that, like after one of the relationships I had in college, like I just stayed to myself for years after that. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm gonna focus on me, get
Mhm.
myself where I need to be at, and let that be like some people may say a healing journey, right?
Mhm.
But it wasn't that for me. It was just like, okay, I'm gonna focus on myself. I'm gonna get the schoolwork done and whatnot. But I think in different phases along the way, would I be comfortable with my daughter bringing someone home that was like me at those ages? I would say yes.
Mhm.
But with that, but do I also know what I was thinking at that time? Yes, I know what I was thinking at the time. And that's where I would be like,
Oh yeah.
no, I gotta watch you. Nah, like, you cool enough, but I gotta watch you, brother. Like you the type that you might show
Y'all
up
sit on
for
the porch.
yeah, like sit on a porch type things. Or yeah, we're gonna go to the movies. Okay, y'all come too. Like, nah, we ain't gonna do that. Or, even if it's at home and you're sitting on the couch, like, okay, I might give you a little bit of privacy, but give a little bit of respect and trust there.
Mhm.
But I mean, I ain't got no like camera or some setup. I think like, nah, man, I got to know what the hell's going on in this space here. Yeah, so I would be okay with it, but I think I would just have to, you have to make sure and kind of we go through the process of vetting, right? Like vet
Mhm.
this person to see where they are and seeing like what their intentions are. 'Cause I think that's the one question that's usually asked on like most movies and TV shows when the girl brings a boy home. Like, man, what's your intention with my daughter?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
and I think it's okay to kind of ask that, but I think, I think in today that question can be phrased a little differently to just, okay, what's it to you, what you got going on, and what do you see from this relationship? Like, are you just like here for it just for shits
Well,
and giggles, or are you here for like, okay, now I'm looking for somebody that I want to go through that process with? Because at that point, it's like, okay, I need to make sure I'm teaching my daughter, like,
yeah.
not every boy that you run into is going to be that guy that you should
Right.
be like bringing home. So
Yeah.
it's like I want you to pick wisely and learn to pick wisely on
Yeah.
and choose what you think is right for you. But
Mhm.
what are those characteristics and traits that you're looking for along the way that mean a lot to you and your values?
So that's kind of a hard question for me. Um, So it really depends on, I think, with, kind of like you were saying, I was always, yes, sir, no, ma'am, very respectful to elders.
Mhm.
If I seen, an old lady trying to take out her groceries or whatever, I would go help.
Mhm.
I was always that kid.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, when I got around my buddies and stuff, like
Oh,
I
yeah.
was a whole different person.
Yeah.
And I definitely got into my share of trouble and
Mhm.
all that. I mean, you grew up with me, you
Mhm.
remember like some of the things. And I think like that part I wouldn't want.
Yeah.
But I
Mhm.
think overall, like the respect
The character.
that the
Yeah.
character and the respect and maybe even the stepping stones to get where I'm at,
Mhm.
and being who I am today, yes. But as far as some of the other stuff, it all depends. Like there's some parts of it I wouldn't want,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
What's you guys' approach to your daughter bringing a boy home for the first time? Are y'all gonna be the dads that's gonna be holding a gun or cleaning the shotgun?
nah, man. My personal opinion on that, man, honestly, is no different than being in a relationship with trust.
Mhm.
Because at the
Mhm.
end of the day, if you don't trust somebody and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can actually push somebody away.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
And no
yeah,
different than if you're that guy that's sitting there with a gun or whatever,
yeah.
and you're the intimidating dad,
Mhm.
like and you're saying, "Oh, you don't need to be with him." Like odds are she's
She's gonna
going
do
to
it.
push
Yeah.
back. Yeah, it's going to cause a pushback, and so I feel like no, I would be welcoming,
Mhm.
but I think over time of getting to know that person, I think they would understand where I stand with
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Without
Absolutely.
me actually having to say it.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I think it's the same case for me. I'm not going to be like the guy at the door with the shotgun or anything
Right.
like that. That's just, I feel like that is an intimidation factor.
Mhm.
And if there's one thing that, from the sports world, you never had to like try to show intimidation to anybody. Like you knew if you were intimidating person,
Right.
like you
Yeah.
knew that. And like that's something I don't have to like try to put out there with certain
Right.
people. So I personally I wouldn't be completely open, but do your part in the process to
Yeah,
vet
be a
through.
parent.
Be a parent.
Yeah,
I mean, you
yeah.
got to be a parent. It's not, okay, yeah, sure, go to your room, shut and lock
Yeah,
the door.
no.
It ain't like
Mhm.
that,
No.
But at the same time, you can't hover over them as well, or be that person that none of your kids' friends want to come to your house or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I'd
yeah.
rather my daughter be at my house with her boyfriend or
Yeah.
Yeah.
my house with her friends
Yeah, yeah.
than her friend's house,
Yeah.
because I don't know
What goes
how
What
on?
goes on there?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I will say that's like the one thing my mom did say. She was like, I'd rather you do it here than trying to do it somewhere else.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you knew what that doing things was like too far. Like, my mom was
Mhm.
like, okay, you can curse in here. Like
Mhm.
do it. No, it's okay. But like I know you're gonna curse out there, do it here, but don't call me out my name, like nothing like
Mhm.
that. But that's okay. But I think you have to build that trust and rapport with your kids there for them to feel comfortable doing that,
Mhm.
and that they're not going to be that you're going to hold that against them once you give them that or allow them that freedom to kind of do X, Y, Z, right? So you kind of find that balance in between, of course. So that's the big thing for me.
Yeah, because if you don't, then you kind of if you restrict somebody from something so much,
Mhm.
it's going to make them want to do it
Yeah,
even
yeah.
more.
Mhm.
Like if they never get that experience, all of us did it. We did stuff that our parents didn't know about.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
But at the same time, we knew, not to do that at at my dad's house and
Mhm.
your
Yeah,
parents'
yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Like so, we just knew.
Yeah.
But a lot of people that hover their kid, they may go and do it at their friend's house
Mhm.
because they want to, and they know they can't
Mhm.
trust to do
Mhm.
stuff at your house without you being mad and them getting grounded.
Yeah.
One last question I want to ask you guys is, what advice would you give to other men who are about to become first-time fathers?
So, one things I will say is, it's kind of it's a hard situation to balance work and being a
Absolutely.
father.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I
Especially
feel
the
like
work we're in.
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
And with the cost of living and just
Mhm.
everything in general. One thing I feel like I've learned over time was, you've got to balance that. You have to make time for your significant other
Mhm.
and your child
Yeah.
and work. It can't
Mhm.
just be, I was always the type that, I was always working. Like,
Mhm.
let me, I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was always, there was some parts I will admit, like I wish I would have spent a little more time,
Mhm.
Mhm.
with my daughter when I was working.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's, if I had to give any advice, is figure out the work and home life
Yeah,
balance.
absolutely.
The balance, yeah. I think mine is one, take an air bed, because I mean that thing at the hospital is crap. Don't do that to yourself. So take an air mattress, get comfortable. But definitely, throughout the process, be there for the appointments. It's not just
Yeah.
for the baby, it's for her too. Like,
Mhm.
be there in that process.
Mhm.
Out of that, I think one, I'll also out of that, excuse me, don't don't create a process that you're not ready for at the same time.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
know that you don't
Yeah,
need to step
yeah.
in there and
Mhm.
what is it? Wear the Jimmy, man. Wear your
Yeah,
Jimmy,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Like, don't go out there and
It's
do
not
something
ain't a
to create
game.
the child first, and you're not
Mhm.
yet ready for that in
Yeah.
yourself.
Mhm.
And the thing is knowing that you may not be ready for it, but she may be, and says this something she wants along the
Mhm.
way, and you can't be upset about it because you contributed to this
Yeah,
process.
yeah,
Like, you
yeah,
did
yeah,
this.
yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think out of that, do it when you're ready to have a child for yourself and what feels comfortable in your life. Don't go out there and do something that's you're going to feel like it's maybe a regret on your end, and you're like, okay, I'm not ready for that.
Yeah.
Or you may have made a bad choice and it may not be the right woman for you to have a child with and go in that co-parenting phase. But, choose wisely.
Yeah.
To I think other things out of that is to find someone who you look up to as a father figure
Mhm.
and connect with them for mentorship along the way, because I think that's big, especially if you grew up in a household without a father. Like, at least connect with somebody who is a
Mhm.
father out there.
Absolutely.
And then, also that first drive home from the hospital is your heightened awareness is on like 10, because you're paying attention to all these little things, because you got this little human in the back of your car now that you're looking
Yeah.
out for. And that's a thing for me that has shifted in my life, to where I'll blankly say it, beforehand I felt like there probably was not much to be living for until I had my child, to where I was like,
Mhm.
nah, man, I actually have a purpose for living, and this is
Yeah.
what I have to be here to help my daughter along this process. And not only that, but now that I'm married, it's also the same thing of like, okay, I'm going through this journey with my wife, but not to get off topic. But those are a couple of things that I think that would be beneficial for any young man who's being a first time father. The hospital, choose wisely. The bed for the hospital, excuse me, the car ride back from the hospital, and there's just no manuscript for being a father. So it's all trial and error, and learn from those failures. Failures first attempt in learning. So learn from those, and celebrate your successes along the way.
Absolutely. You said something about learning something. I before I had my first child, before I had my daughter, I was still, kind of running the
Mhm.
streets, So I actually told a very good mentor of mine, one of the people I love the most, Thomas Connor. He actually, he helped evolve my life and
Mhm.
change my life for the good, and more significant than he can even imagine.
Mhm.
But I was at his house one day, and uh, I don't know how the conversation triggered, but
Mhm.
it was something about children. And I was selfish. I told him, I was like, "Hey, I want to have a child for my legacy." You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
And looking back and
Mhm.
reflecting on that, what I said, it was very selfish of me
Mhm.
to say something like that,
Yeah.
to be in that mindset,
Mhm.
because it's not a game to
Mm-mm.
raise a child. I
No,
mean, if you
it's
want to
not.
raise them correctly and appropriately,
Mhm.
then it's hard work. It's tough. I mean, it's easy for someone to say, well, I take care of my kids. Yeah, but you're on government assistance.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Section 8 housing, you're
Mhm.
getting food. You're there providing for
Mhm.
them or giving them this
Mhm.
stuff, but you're not taking care of their.
Yeah.
So statistically speaking, the probability of them growing up like that is very higher
Right.
than normal.
Mhm.
And it just breaks my heart when people get content and just doing that,
Yeah.
just making babies that fathers, mothers as well,
Mhm.
that they can't take care of.
Yeah. Right.
It's a big issue we have in society that, oh, I can take care of them. I can just go apply for
Yeah.
this thing right here, or
Right.
that thing right there. And it's not.
I was going to add to that. And the thing is I think we're thinking of it in the same respect, but you have to get a little uncomfortable breaking a cycle of what has
Absolutely.
been created.
Mhm.
And if the mother, the father, whatever case may be, has constantly seen the constant generational cycle of being on welfare, excuse me, and not wanting to come off of that, like, I understand that is a scary thing
Mhm.
to come off of if you've never had never seen someone do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And that's the hard part within the generational curse of that.
Mhm.
And you have to kind of break that curse and cycle at some point. Because my mom, we grew up on it at one point
Mhm.
as well. And I can't even get nothing nowadays out of it. But and I'm blessed to say that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
That's the thing. I'm
100%.
blessed to say
Yeah.
that. But but I think it's a fear of stepping outside of something
You're comfortable.
you're just so comfortable with
Mhm.
it. And if that's what you're okay with, that's fine. But know that at some point there's going to be some restriction in that, and things can start getting a little tighter for you.
Yeah.
And you do have to think of, like, how am I going to break this cycle and curse to where my kids just don't think that this is a system that they need to go through.
Normal.
This is normal.
Mhm.
It's not. But you have to be able to teach your kids that, but also be very transparent with kids. I made some choices
Yeah, absolutely.
along this way
Teaching
that were
moment.
not great, and I want to make sure you don't make these same decisions that I made as well. Again, it's going back to, you look like your parents, but you die looking like your choices.
Mhm.
Tell them the things they need to learn along the way and help them, and to avoid the same trap that you fell into. And if you can't teach your kids that along the way, you're not helping them. So that's made me think about what you were saying along that process of
Mhm.
Trying to break that generational curse and not going down the same cycle and doing things that are right for you, and make sure that you do that the right way.
Yeah. It's because raising and having children, it shouldn't be a game.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be. It's so cute. Nah,
Mhm.
this is a human being that you're nurturing and you're bringing up in this scary world. And I want to provide my children with the right tools to succeed in the world. I just don't want to see them, just not doing shit with their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, we get one life to live, and do it the best you can.
Do it the best you can.
Yeah, this has been fun, man. I appreciate you guys. This I speak about topics that, like I said, I'm no expert on any of these matters I ever speak about. I'm a human, what I mean? I share real world experience, and I love to have real world. I love to have people to come in and share their experience as well. And we all share different experiences, different times in our lives. And I really appreciate you guys for taking the time out of your schedule to come in, sitting down, and having these conversations with me. Is there anything you want to add on, or missed out on anything? You want to?
Not really. I just want to say I appreciate you having me on the show and kind of going over all this, because I'm sure there's a lot of people going back to like the first parent. Thing. If they watch the show and watch this, they're actually there's a lot of good stuff we talked about that they benefit from.
Yeah. So, and don't just take, we all take. I love whether it's in the automotive industry or life. I want to learn from, if I'm going to this technician, and they're all doing the same exact job, but they're all doing something different.
Right.
how they approach the job, how they diagnose it, how
Mhm.
they repair it, how
Mhm.
they confirm the repair.
Mhm.
And I want to take all three of those and put my spin on
Spin
it
on it,
to
yeah.
figure out what works best for me.
Mhm.
Because
Right.
mine may be different from all four of them, and it
Yeah.
may be come out even better, you know,
Mhm.
have a better success rate.
Yeah.
So that's the point of this. You know, we all share our experiences and reflect on those to
Yeah.
try to give, you know, the viewers some type of something to take away from
Mhm.
this show.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to appreciate you guys, show my appreciation.
Yeah.
You guys on YouTube and Facebook. Again, subscribe, like, share the show. It means the world to me from the support you guys have been giving me since the few months, 2 or 3 months I've been doing
Mhm.
this. And again, if you have a story, I would love to talk to you. So
And if
feel free.
And if I can just add in,
Yeah,
one, thanks for having me here today. But also just shout out to you for following, a passion of yours
Oh
and
yeah,
investing
yeah.
into this, because there are a lot of people who have something in their head, an idea of something
Mhm.
they want to do, but they don't know where to start
Oh,
at.
absolutely.
And you took that and you you've reached out, you looked for that help, and
Mhm.
you've looked up, you've done your own research. So I
Mhm.
think that's big in any case for when someone is looking to be into a new field or looking for something passionate to
Yeah.
start, that they do the research, they invest into the thing. So yeah, just thank you for you for doing that for
Yeah,
yourself
this
there and
is
taking that
this is
investment.
fun for me. I mean, I really enjoy doing this. Like I said, I've been doing this for a few months. I've been working on it for well over a year,
Mhm.
and I'm a perfectionist. I tried so hard to do this perfect, but it's not just setting the camera up and
Mhm.
recording and posting. It's so much more, and it's
Yeah.
tough, man. It is really
Yeah.
tough, like financially and just time consuming
Mhm.
of how to set this up, how to
Mhm.
do this, where do I need to put this at.
Yeah.
It's and I'm still learning to this day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not perfected. I'm looking for somebody to build me a proper intro. So if you're out there and you can do that, I'm looking. I am in the market. Because
Mhm.
some things I'll outsource from the banner to
Yeah.
the icon on my page.
Yeah.
It's a
It's a starting
yeah,
process. It just takes time to evolve, and
yeah,
it
absolutely.
will get to where you want it to. It's things have to
Yeah.
start to formulate and get into the process first. So yeah,
Mhm.
just trust the process. What Joel and B say, trust the process.
I want to thank you guys again for being here. I want to thank your parents for having raw sex, for putting you guys here as well
That
too.
that is the one thing that I've said that someone said to me one day, and I said, "Dang it, that is very true." And it was don't be so down on yourself. Remember, you won the sperm race in your kids. And I'm like,
Yeah.
God, yeah, no, they're not playing. I said, dang, wow, okay, well, maybe look at life a little differently
Yeah.
there. So yeah.
Again, to the viewers out there, I'm glad that your parents had raw sex and you won the sperm race. So again, this is MEXed Feelings. Tune in for our future and our past shows, where we will be returning with the relationship series in a few weeks. And again, thank you. This is MEXed Feelings.